And sunnies, it is I, Queen J Lotus, King Sunkiss, coming at y'all right quick, right fast, maybe, for another Royale review for Living Single Season 1, Episode 3. Now, I know it's been a while, Brian. It's been a while, Brian. But don't fret, okay? Because we're going to do this thing like we do it here and queer, okay? Just ride with me and enjoy, all right? So now, this here episode is one that I have enjoyed. In case you don't know or you have forgotten, I didn't watch Living Single growing up. It would be, I don't like talking about, but I ain't actually watch it. So this is really a first time watch for me. And thus far, episode 3 is one of my favorite episodes. I know, it's just episode 3 of the whole entire series. But thus far, episode 3 is one of my faves. So the name of this episode is, Whose Date Is It Anyway? Interesting. And this episode is centered around Sinclair, and we get quite a bit of character development and information and background and such on Miss Sinclair, and it ends up revealing a lot about the other characters and the dynamics of the girlfriend group and the male duo and the whole collective dynamic as well. So, without further ado, gonna go ahead and get into, ain't gonna waste no more time. Finna go and get right into the specificities of this episode. Okay, and so this episode kicks off with Khadijah and Sinclair in the bathroom. And Khadijah brushing her teeth, Sinclair is taking off her makeup, and she is very sentimentally taking off her makeup and talking about how I'm always so sad to say goodbye to the makeup that I have on throughout the day. Bye lipstick, bye mascara, bye eyeshadow. So, I found that to be adorable. And Khadijah is irritated by this because she's like, basically, is there anything that you could stand to say in your head? Is there anything that you don't ever feel like sharing, honey? And Sinclair's like, well, yesterday at the office, I wondered what life would be like if we had toes on our hands and fingers. What? Toes on our hands and fingers on our toes. Man. But she said, but you all were busy, so I figured it wasn't a time to share. So they just like, man, let's talk about something else. So they get to asking, where is Ray Jean? I ain't seen her since yesterday, honey. So she is juggling 2 dates again. And Sinclair is like, I don't know how she does it. And so Ray Jean then buzzes in the bathroom, slides immediately into some more shoes, flies immediately into like some other vest and slaps on a hat wig, washes her mouth out with some Listerine, and immediately runs out. Does a whole freaking theater quick costume change. I'm fucking hollering. That is hilarious as fuck. And you know, if this was a different type of show, like Being Mary Jane or some shit, they would show us the literal whole bath of it all. And honestly, they did show us a literal whole bath on Being Mary Jane. They showed her doing the whole simulation of the whole bath. Tisk. So that's what that's given in PG sitcom form, a mess. So after that, we get the title scene. We are living Single. Yes, we are living the single life. You know, this is the whole extended original theme song that they still got playing here. Keep your head up, what? Keep your head up, that's right. Whenever this life gets tough, you gotta fight with. My homegirl standing to my left and my right, true blue. It's tight like glue. Now, even though I did not grow up watching this Lifetime Hot, I have always known the theme song. That's what you call some impact for the culture for your ass. So yeah, especially the rap part lives rent free in my head, especially and particularly keep your head up, what? Keep your head up, that's right. Yes, God. So real quick, right fast, we didn't get out of that opening scene is that Sinclair is inevitably transparent and very naturally bubbly and whimsical and all of the things. And people would very easily call this like ditzy or act like she is delayed in the brain or something of the sort. We may also be able to observe some elements of a possibility that she could be on the spectrum of autism and or ADHD, which would be autism and ADHD. This could be a thing. This could be a thing. Okay, possibilities, philosophically, you know. But I'm here for it. I'm here for it because see, me and Sinclair will be up in there philosophizing on all of the things about the fingers and the toes and the toes and the fingers and all of the things about everything. You know what I'm saying? I be in there like, oh, you know something that is cool. I want to say goodbye sentimentally to my blush. You know what I'm saying? When I take it off at night too. Shit. Let me make love to myself even deeper on this end. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so shit. Sinclair giving me notes and ideas. And I'm welcoming of it. Low-key, high-key, me. Okay, so thus far, the two that I resonate with the most is Regine and Sinclair. You could say that I give very much so a combination, a good dual balance, all of the best things about Sinclair and Regine put together. Okay, and then sometimes I'm a little rough and stuff with my airflow puffs, you know, like Khadijah type shit. Even though I know that's Queen Latifah and that's Lady of Rage's line, but hey, okay, theme, characters and shit. Anyway, a mess. So, given the fact that we starting off with Khadijah and Sinclair, but then it's talk about Regine juggling 2 dates, right? So it's called Whose Date Is It Anyway? It could easily make us think that we're going to be talking about Regine juggling her menses throughout the episode. However, like I said, we started off unpacking some things about Sinclair, right? So instantly on the theme of whose date is it anyway? Whose date is it? Because we could also infer from the first scene, like, is we gonna be getting into some background information, introducing some new characters through Regine type shit. Are we gonna see, 2 guys tussling over Regine? Okay? But as we proceed to give you R&B mother, because what you need is the crooks and crannies of the next scene. In the next scene, we back on Sinclair, but this time she is with Overton, sitting on the couch, and they are trying to play this board game called Blasto It's a Blast. And Overton is going over the rules and whatnot. Sinclair is having a hard time. I am having a hard time. And she like, is there like a simplified version of the rules or this game or anything? Because what the fuck? And Overton gonna say, well, we playing a simplified version as it is. Hold on, Holiday. Get up off my girl. Don't be coming for her like that. That shit is complicated. Everybody ain't a handyman like you. Everybody don't be understanding all that geometry and physics and shit going on like you do, okay? Now, I don't know if the game got anything to do with it, but it just seemed like it would. Like some space shit, all right? You just hold on. Reading instructions and shit, okay? Sometimes people have a hard time following rules, okay? Free spirits have a couple of hard times with rules. You have to explain it differently. You got to break it down differently. Maybe we learn as we go, okay? Okay? You just have some patience. Anyway. So Khadijah and Max enter talking about which movie they want to see, and is heavily based on which male lead they want to see that they feel like is the sexiest and going to be showing off their sexiest the most. And it seemed like they was going between a movie with Wesley Snipes and a movie with Denzel Washington. I am hollering. And here we also learned that both throughout the scene, honestly, and amongst others, we learned that Khadijah and Maxine have a thing for nipples and ass when it comes to the menses. That's just very intriguing to me. I don't fantasize about men's asses or their nipples or anything. But I noticed that there are quite a few women that do. I don't know what that's about. If you know what that's about, let me know something in the comments, because I don't know. Anyway. Regine comes down, she got another date. And she got on this real nice blue, hot in the pot type dress on, sleeveless, strapless, and she looking for her, like, shoulder scarf thing that you throw over what. Now, talking about she feel naked without it. Khadijah said, honey, because you are naked without it. It's a knock at the door. And Kyle is there, and he enters, bothering Max, talking about Max, finding you here does not ruin the look of my day. Because Max opened the door and was like, it's a head of broccoli at the door. That is what he's giving, I'm not gonna lie. And she asked him, do the doctor got a cure for ugly? Is that a part of your look? Unfortunate. So Kyle is like, yeah, whatever. I got these 2 tickets to the Knicks and Bulls games for the free. Max trying to get him because she want to see long legs men in shorts. See again, this ass fascination. Now don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker for some legs. But she trying to see, look at that boy, them Daisy Dukes on. She like them Daisy Dukes. That's her interest in particular. I just want to see the legs, they tell. Okay. So Kyle, he ain't trying to hear what she talking about. He is there to get Alberton so that they can go to the game. And Alberton is like, hold on, holiday. Hold up. Okay, hold up. You see a baby on the couch. What's the hold up? You got to slow your roll with the roll up. Because he is trying to get on Sinclair. As he should. And Kyle is like, pump your brakes. I went to that museum of tools through the ages exhibit with you. Did I not? I ain't even much want to do that, but I did it. So bring that ass on here, boy. He said, man, that's true. Damn. Sinclair, you mind if we pick this up on another day? And Sinclair says, oh, I get it. It's a man thing, which is different from a woman thing because then that would include cramps and bloating. And once again, Sinclair is asked to censor herself. Oh my goodness. So they exit and Khadijah invites Sinclair to come out with them to the movies. But Sinclair is like, oh no, that won't do. No, thank you. I'm going to stay home and pumice my heels. And Regine says, now that is pathetic. Sinclair, how many days have you been on since you moved to New York? Sinclair says, by date, you mean? Regine says, going out on a date with the opposite sex who is not, or at least is only a distant relative of yours. My God, today. In my case, baby, please. Someone who is not related to you. All right? Now, Regine, you letting us know a little too much about yourself or something. Unfortunate. Okay, so Sinclair's like, oh, that type of date. Let's see, in the last 6 months there was no, and then there was no dates. Not a single date in 6 months, says Maxine. And she says that she'd be sliding down the walls of City Hall. Interesting, Max. Interesting. So, Sinclair pops in and is like, back in Minneapolis, I didn't worry about these things. Guys would ask me out, and Mom would say I couldn't go. And Ray Jane said, wait, Mama ain't here, so we finna hook you up. And Khadijah like, look, date is not gonna make Sinclair any better. It's not gonna make her feel any better. Y'all doing too much, okay? Y'all are doing too much. Basically, her life ain't got to be all about a man. Ray Jane says, look, just because you ain't out here getting on men, don't mean you got to deprive your cousin too. Khadijah said, honey, don't get it twisted, okay? Hold up. Okay, hold up. You see a baby coming to you, what's the hold up? Just because I'm not giving it away with a double coupon don't mean I don't get some. Booski. Hey now. And she said, and plus, Sinclair don't need no help getting no dates from either two of you horny toes. She can make up her own mind. Horny toes is an interesting description, but I do think that it applies. Especially the way that this conversation continues on. But Sinclair is excited. She out here for it. She said, baby, I want a date. Let's get it. What y'all got? And as we proceed to give you R&B mother, what you need is a continuation of this conversation. So, the ladies go essentially one by one, giving their date prospects as well as bullet points for some of the things that Sinclair should be looking for in a man. Things that she should need and desire from a man. Max kicks it out, saying first on her list is a John Luckett. He's an advertising exec. Fine, funny, and he used to have a bad brownstone in Brooklyn. Sinclair says, used to. Maxine says, until I represented his ex-wife in their divorce. Ouch. Ouch. Honey. So next, Regine puts down her prospect, short aspects. Talking about, listen, don't worry about all that. I have resources as yet untapped. Khadijah talking about, I thought you had tapped everything in town. Ooh, burn. And Ray says, I thought you were staying out of this. Khadijah said I was, but you left yourself wide open. Ray G laughs it off and she said, look. Going out with a man because he's fine is shallow. All right? Don't put you on game, baby. You also must be concerned with how much money he makes. Now, of course, it's not just the money. It's how generous he is with dead money. And whether he's hung up on that goddamn prenuptial thing. Yeah, know? And Maxine is not here for this. She like, look, calm out it down. I got a few universal rules for you. No actors, no models. 2, no butt, no date. Back on the booty. And she goes on to say, and most importantly, no man who's in love with a basketball is the right one. And if he can't even attend your college graduation, and as soon as you get in your career, is the moment that he takes off and now he's rolling in the summertime with a drop top, girl, Khadijah has to intervene and pull her back into reality, back to life. Baby Greg is gone. He's gone in Chicago with another woman. And all I have is a little bit of loving and a little bit of touching and a little bit of nothing and just a little bit of myself left. The woman, that girl that you left, she ain't here no more. Now that was me going into a spontaneous actor stem of a monologue. If you know, you know. 7 guitars, honey. 7 guitars. But back into the scene. Back to Maxine's reality. Alright, so they just snaps her back into their reality because apparently Maxine started having some flashbacks of her own experience dealing with a dude that played basketball and absconded himself out of her life as soon as she took off in her career. Ain't that a biatch? And I know this because I continued on into the other episode that this guy Greg, this is official verbal introduction of this character Greg that we're gonna meet in episode 4. But let's hold that nose, stick a pin in there. We'll get there when we get there. But yeah. So that gives us some backstory on Max as well. See, yeah. See, we finding out about some things. I'm gonna address some other things about some other backstories when we get, once we conclude this scene. But anywho, continuing on. So yes, Max comes back to us and she tells, I'm not bitter. Okay, everything's fine. And Sinclair says, listen, it's okay. I'm not looking for perfection. Just someone who's kind and gentle and sensitive, loves plants and animals. And Regine says, oh, yeah, well, I can't help you with that. And Sinclair says, so you're saying there's nobody out there like that? Maxine says, yeah, a shepherd. And then there's a knock at the door. And it is Alverton. And he done brought her over a juicer. I guess he done fixed the juicer for her. And he said, look, this little juicer doesn't just extract juice and separate the pulp, but it also can debone a snapper for your next fish fry. So, what you up to? Sinclair says, they sent me up on a date. He said, a date? With a dude? And she says, yes, maybe even a shepherd. So, I used to be a shepherd. She says, really? He said, no, I'm just lying for lack of anything better to say at a time like this. Yeah, I was just kidding about the juice and the snapper. Po big baby. And he leaves and Regine gets up and like, look, okay, we got to set Sinclair up with somebody. It can't be like this now. There has to be somebody. I also got to point out at this moment that I just noticed that Sinclair has on a shirt that says Museum of Ex-Boyfriends. That's very interesting. It's quite one thing for this conversation, in the scene and everything. Interesting. So, as they're going through and Regine is having this whole tangent, Sinclair pipes up and he's, hey, you know that cute veterinarian that works around the corner, Michael Edwards? Well, he asked me out. I say, what? He asked you out when? She said, yes, this morning. But he just said, you mean you forced me to sit through this stupid discussion and all this time you had a doctor in your pocket? She said, well, I was going to say something, but somebody said something about a shepherd and I got all excited. My God, today. Child, so now my rundown of thoughts and feels on this whole scene. Okay, it's technically 2 scenes, but it's one whole scene. It's a compound scene. So yeah, first and foremost, what we learned about Sinclair from this scene is that she is originally from Minnesota and has only been in New York with the girls for 6 months. Amongst the fact that she had no date in 6 months and she was very sheltered when she was back at the ranch living with her mama. And I wonder if, of course, I'm sure her mama would have been sheltering of her regardless because she's a girl. She's a lady, she's a woman, female, all that. But also, I feel like another part of it is because there's some sort of suspecting that Sinclair may be a bit delayed. I don't think she's delayed. I think she's just, potentially on the spectrum. So which means that she processes information and shit differently. She processes things differently, more so. Howsoever, I feel like her mama was like saying no, that she couldn't go on dates and stuff because she didn't want Sinclair to be even more susceptible to being taken advantage of. Amongst that, all of the ladies even feel this like motherly responsibility, if you will, over Sinclair. They feel like they need to like kind of like groom her in a way, like guide her and like, kind of tell her how she should think and feel about the things and set her up on a date and all of that. Like they're handling her very much so like how they were doing Ashley on Fresh Prince when she went on her first date. And Ashley was like 13. You know? So it's very much so giving that amongst Maxine's rant ends up revealing self-projection amongst the situation. So it's given that the ladies are also projecting their, particularly Maxine and Regine, that they're kind of projecting their needs and desires onto Sinclair amongst projecting what they think, how they think is supposed, how they think and feel things are supposed to go. They're projecting that onto Sinclair. What I also feel like is being projected on Sinclair is their man issues, because like I said, we get some background information on man issues that Max has had and such, and or is having amongst some of these standards seem to be rooted in insecurity. It seems to be rooted in this sense of fear of trying to stop something from happening and or trying to make sure that you can always be sure of how the situation will end and or turn out. And I feel like that's also showing up in the way that they're handling Sinclair altogether. They're trying to micromanage the play out of it all. Other things, that I wanted to pose a question similar to what Khadijah was doing. Like, is there something wrong with her not being fixated on having a date or a man or anything of that nature? Is there something wrong with that? Like, is it really necessary to be like, if she was, so here's the thing. If I had a friend that was seeming like down in the dumps and I noticed that they ain't really been doing much type shit, they just been cooped up in the house or they've only been going to work and shit like that, I would invite them out and or I would just suggest in general, hey, maybe go out, meet some new people, in general, and just, see where things go from there, especially if they have just moved to a new place and such. But particularly being like, oh, a man, let's get you a man, let's get you on a date, like, that's unnecessary. Because also, I feel like that's a slippery slope, because that could easily make a poor first impression on your getting out into the scene in this new place that you're staying in, let alone, you know what I'm saying? So there is definitely some pick-me, male-centered type energy going on in this conversation and in this episode and such. It's not surprising, especially given the time period and, things. But yeah, just had to, I'm like, is it supposed to be something wrong with that? And then also, and I feel like this kind of gives some background information like on their environment as it concerns them saying and thinking that there's no man like what Sinclair described. Someone who is handsome and funny and loves animals and, this, that, and the third. Those, good, delightful things that Sinclair names off. In their mind, that doesn't exist. I mean, they are living in the concrete jungle of it all. And I have noticed that a lot of those men do tend to be more aggressive, if not like a lot of how they present the men on this show, at least thus far. They come off either very hard or very pretty boy and kind of shallow. Versus if they were in the South, they would know much more that there are plenty handsome, funny men that love animals and all that good shit. I mean, they may still cheat on you and rage the fuck out. But for the most part, they're going to talk to you real soft, touch you real delicately. A lot of the time, they might bite you if you want them to. They might bite you because they had a long day at work or something. They're going to open the door, all of that, all of the things. But also, I do believe in, and it's also because I've seen it and experienced it, there are good, well-rounded men out there, okay? You got to be honest with yourself about what you want. You got to be honest with yourself about what you want and keep faith in the fact that it's out there. And staying on that track, baby, will allow you to attract and be attracted, okay? Sometimes you got to go through a rocky process of elimination, but by all means, unconditionally, honor yourself. You honor yourself. Honey, everything will fall into alignment. I know, that can sound real cheesy and cliche, and it may be like unrealistic or whatever, but more often than not, a lot of people have been surrounded by more people that talk down on that type shit and don't even give themselves the opportunity to try it. So a lot of the times the information is coming and saying, oh, that's not real, or that's impossible, and this and that, it's coming from an ignorant place. It's coming from a willfully ignorant place, and people who are so rooted and functioning in fear that they haven't even allowed themselves to try. They've talked themselves out of it before they even really gave it an attempt, and or they have commitment issues themselves that they're not being honest about, and they're projecting that onto other people. And all of the things that I just said ends up being evident in the fact of when Sinclair pop out talking about she done been asked on a date. She got asked on a date that morning. So, honey, clearly she don't have no problems getting no date, and that's what I figured. That's what I figured. Hell, Overton all up in her goddamn face. Well, there's one. There's many more. Okay. Sinclair don't have no issue getting no date, but she may have needed permission. You know what I'm saying? In a mental sense, she may have been kind of stuck in the muscle memory of I can't go no way because my mama said I can't go, so I might as well not go. You know, kind of still operating like her mama's still around. So the girls did low-key high-key need to mother her in the sense of, hey, you know, you can go out, you can go on a date, you can do that. So now that she knows it's allowed, she's like, hey, let's go, let's do it. And so she gonna get on the go by this date. But before we get there, Overton is still sitting outside the door on the step at the bottom of the staircase. And he's like kind of looking at his hammer. He's in deep thought and such. Kyle walks in and he walks over and teases him and says, I know what you're thinking. If only it had breast, right? Sir. And Overton don't get no type of response or whatever. He just continues on doing what he's doing. And so Kyle immediately knows that something is wrong. Something is off. What's going on? And Overton says, they in there, set Sinclair up on a date. Yeah, so this is really bothering him. Unfortunate. And so they're like, damn, that's deep. And Overton is like, yeah, like, I done spent so much time with this girl, on this girl, fixing her refrigerator, her juicer, her blender, her radiator, the coffee maker. Good God. He said he was fixing stuff that wasn't even broke. And Kyle says, but you never asked her out, man. He said, I'm building up to it. It was part of my 3-year plan. Oh, baby. I thought John Clayton. I thought John Clayton could put a plan on your ass. This boy said 3 years. I mean, Overton is clearly a country bumpkin type dude. I don't know if his character is supposed to be from the South or the West or anywhere like that, or from like the, you know, some of the, I think New York has some rural areas. Yeah, I don't know if he's from one of them places or whatever, but he is one that is like, he appears to be kind of a fish out of water the way that Sinclair is also. It comes off to be pretty obvious that they are not from New York, or they're not from New York City. All the while, like I said, I'm not sure about Overton. He may just be like that. He may just be an oddball of the area. But we shall see as we get through the seasons. But so yeah, Kyle is like, you never asked her out. He like, it's all a part of his 3-year plan. And he was gonna get all up into it and give us the cricks and crannies of the details. And Kyle stops and said, hold on. Okay, hold up. You see a baby coming to you. What's the hold up? 3 years? You trying to do 3 years, baby? You is gonna be in the crowd about to catch the bouquet at her wedding, honey. What you need is a little coaching. All right? From the master, the man. And Overton says, Billy D. Williams. He said, sir, now see, stop playing with me. Listen, I'm gonna give you the rundown. First and foremost, she's a woman and you a man. Get it? Hell no. But this is letting us know how Kyle thinks, or in a sense that he don't think. Let's see. So Overton is not picking up what he putting down. I ain't either. And he clowning him. Okay? Kyle said, look, I'm just pacing you. Look, lesson number 2, all right? You see, a woman wants to be seduced, coaxed, cajoled, and teased. Overton said he don't get it. I'm concerned. So Kyle switches it up, says, think of her as a washing machine that's broke. Now Overton is understanding where they at in life. Okay? They are not quite to the neighborhood, okay? But they about to, hit that entrance of being in the neighborhood so that they can get to the point of parking the car in the yard. Now, the next thing is the ladies getting Sinclair all together for her to go on her date with the doctor. They got her hair all done, her dress all done, her makeup all done, and all of the things. And you can tell that Regine is responsible for her makeup. Okay, so Sinclair is talking about how nervous she is and how she ain't been so nervous since she lost her tube top at the bottom of Randy Johnson's pool. And Regine talking about maybe nobody noticed. I don't really know what that's supposed to mean, but I guess it was a joke. I don't know. Anyway, Sinclair is nervous. And Khadijah walks in and she said, which one of these blind ladies did your makeup? Child, because it ain't necessarily bad. It just don't particularly match Sinclair's vibe and aura, let alone her specific skin tone. Her and Regine are both like on the spectrum of light skin, but they not the same exact type of light skin. And Regine done her own makeup on Sinclair, and so that's why it's giving like, what is this? But it's so, okay, it is so easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl of them to have Queen Latifah's character be the one that comes in and like fixes it, let alone acknowledges it. Now, I don't know if Queen Latifah was doing CoverGirl at this time or none of that. But it's just, how everything comes together and synchronizes. Like talking about, that's cute. So, yeah. Getting all of that together, Sinclair looks quite nice. Quite sophisticated. She still looks like Sinclair, but just, a more put together version, like she going out on town or whatever. And I like how it's still like flower child. They ain't like strap her together with some hoochie coochie mama dress that would be like just totally out the way and out of nowhere type shit. It's still Sinclair's vibe and within her character and shit. So yeah, they're going on and we get another rundown of Max and Ray Jean trying to get Sinclair tips on what to do and how to be on the date. So Ray Jean is going in talking about, the men is they like to talk about themselves, okay? Maxine says, dominate the conversation. Men love it. That means they have to do less thinking. And Ray Jean says, if he says anything humorous, make sure you do the date laugh. Sinclair says the date laugh. She said, yes, you put one hand on your chest and one hand on his shoulder and you giggle. I'm amused and I have these. As in the titties. So Maxine steps in and she says, honey, forget all that she's talking about. The key is the walk. Guaranteed to weaken even the strongest man. And she starts to doing this very handsomely beautiful strut. I say handsomely beautiful because it is very dual in its strengthful masculine and strengthful feminine. All the while, the issue is it's fake. The issue is it is embellished and it is not authentic. So it comes off like a pimp walk. Like a madam walk. Like she finna walk in and slap the shit out of somebody and say, you heifers, look at here. I want you to go out there and shake your asses proper. Okay? Make it look good. Raquel, take off that damn jacket. That's what it's giving, honey. That's what it is giving. But Sinclair say, hey, I can do that. I can do that walk. She steps up and gives her attempt. And baby, she looked like a Thanksgiving turkey running away from the chopper. And me and Khadijah are on one accord. When Khadijah says, that walk ain't saying nothing, but I have bunions and look at my butt. Indubitably. Indubitably. Ray Jean steps in and says, here is where they should be looking anyway. Fixing her bosoms and unzipping the top of her dress, just a hair, so that her bosoms can stand out a bit more. And Khadijah said, baby, look at y'all. Ridiculousness. Okay? Sinclair don't need nobody telling her what to do, how to be, and how to dress. Now zip that thing on up, girl. Now, Khadijah done contradicted herself just a little taste, but I also feel like it's Khadijah helping Sinclair stay true to herself, because Sinclair can be a bit what's the word, malleable. Yeah, not necessarily gullible, but they been unzipped her top and she been forgot that they done it, and then she just go to being Sinclair, and next thing you know, it's a fashion faux pas. It's a wardrobe malfunction. You know what I'm saying? Sinclair is that type. You can, like, it's nice, okay, if she want to show some bosom, you know what I'm saying, but make sure that she's making that decision on her own first and foremost. Otherwise, it's going to be very easy for her to forget what's going on, and then the next thing you know, nip slip, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so Khadijah is also consistently making sure that her top is zipped up. And Sinclair is going through all of the motions of everything they just told her, as Michael is, who they think. They think Michael is at the door now, so they run into the door, but they answer the door, but to let him in. And Sinclair is still in the kitchen going through the motions. I'm amused and I have these. I'm amused and I have these. Unfortunate. So, as we proceed to give you R&B, mother, because what you need is motherfucking Overton at the door, looking all cute and nice. This blue is a wonderful color on him, and he is child nervous in himself. And by Kyle coming up behind him and like fluffing his shoulders and whatnot as a form of encouragement, we know that this is a scheme that Kyle set up to come at us with the bullshit. So Overton is a bit stuck at the door when Sinclair comes to the living room, thinking that she's walking in to see her date, but it's him and he there. So Kyle has to come back and push him on in the room. And he says, evening. He's stuttering and gutter button. And before he can even get to the point, the doctor, who is also Tommy from Martin, he comes on in the room and greets Sinclair like, oh my gosh, you look beautiful, you look nice, it's wonderful, we're going out, we're going to have a great time. And Overton steps in between them and says, hi, I'm Overton. And they are like, hey, yeah. Overton says, you a nice looking man. You got a nice suit, nice shoes. I got shoes. And it's real awkward. Everybody looking crazy, like, what is wrong with this dude? And he reads the room, but he just steps back in, yeah, my shoes, they upstairs where I should be. I gotta go. So he gets on upstairs, and the doctor goes on to say, I made us reservations at this French restaurant, the Rive Gauche. I probably ain't say it right, but don't mind me. But it's a French restaurant. Sinclair is excited. She says it sounds wonderful, so let's go. Arrivederci and shit. So they heads on out, and the ladies is back behind like, oh my gosh, yes, we did so well. We did a fine job. I hope it goes well. I wish we could see it. And they eventually come to the conclusion that they're going to go ahead and see if they can make that happen. Captain. But Khadijah's like, y'all know that ain't right. Yeah, no, that ain't right. Please stop the madness. But Maxine's like, so what y'all want to do today? What y'all want to do tonight? Okay, movies? Nah. How about French food? Yes, magnifique. Let's go. And Khadijah talking that shit, but she eventually gets on up and runs on out talking about, she's gonna need me. Y'all just nosy. And so that, kicking off my thoughts and opinions on this scene and what I have taken in from what's been displayed is the ladies is nosy. So remember what I said about the projections of it all. So I definitely feel like they're projecting their own relationship issues onto Sinclair and such. All the while, this scene reveals where I feel like they are also distracting themselves from either their own boredom or their own chaos that's going on in their own personal relationships and personal lives, and they are using Sinclair and her dating life now as a form of entertainment and something to do and something for them to feel more powerful and more better about themselves amongst. I feel like this is kind of a, could be like a kind of a toxic manner of them trying to relate to her. You know how misery loves company, and it don't always have to be coming from like a malicious place. It can come from people having a bad idea on relatability, and so they could have felt less than because they have relationship issues, and here Sinclair is happy-go-lucky without a relationship, and let alone because she doesn't have the relationship, she doesn't have the issues. So their mind could say that's what it is, that the only reason that she's happy-go-lucky is because she doesn't have a relationship and therefore doesn't have issues that would bring her less happy-go-luckiness. So in them trying to relate to her, they pull her in the midst of something that could potentially bring her issues, that could potentially bring her down and water down her happy-go-luckiness. Child, go fishing, baby. But yeah, I feel like there is some of that going on. I feel like it's them. I feel like it's a lot of things at once. But like the main things is them projecting their own relationship issues onto her and using her as a vessel to distract from their own relationship issues and their own insecurities and such. Amongst, they probably have been a bit jealous of how naturally happy and breezy and such Sinclair is, and they probably equate that, like in their minds, asking, oh, how does she stay like that? How is she so happy? Da, 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 da. They probably come to the conclusion, oh, she doesn't have a man to stress her out. She doesn't have a man to bring her down. She doesn't have a man to intrude and get in the way of her happiness. So, what would happen if we created those types of circumstances for her? Would she remain this happy-go-lucky person? Or would we be able to relate to her more by her then having more quote-unquote bitter, heartbroken traits that we can bond with each other over, you know? And of course, it's not to say that these ladies in particular are like toxic or coming from a malicious place in particular, but these things can still exist whether it's coming from a malicious place or not. It's about how people are conditioned and or are willing, the capacity that they are willing to use and go about in order to get to know people better, in order to relate to them better, in order to feel included in their lives and as an effort to include other people in their lives. That's why evaluating love languages is important, even in your relationship with yourself, because you can feel like something is a love language, right? You can feel like isolating yourself is a love language as a means to an end to protect yourself. But if you get into relationships with people, you have friendships with people, and you end up functioning with them in any way that is toxically isolating to them, and or you limit what your capacity to function and give and be available and allow people to be available for you in relationships, because for instance what worked in one instant may not work in another instant. So with that example of you may have a love language in your relationship with yourself to isolate yourself from things and people or certain things and people as a form of protection of yourself, but when you are actively functioning in relationships with people, that functionality can block you from reciprocating love that you've been given. It can block you from receiving and recognizing true love that you are being given, and it can also have you attract people who will toxically isolate you as a love language, which can end up turning into different forms of abuse, things of that nature. So yeah, you may not be intending to be malicious or harm or anything of that nature, but failing to realize certain things and failing to introspect on certain things and make yourself aware of certain things can result in you acting out in manners where what worked at one time doesn't work at another. What worked in one instance doesn't work in another. What was good in one place is bad in another. You feel me? So yeah. And forcing relatability is toxic in itself. You don't force relatability. If somebody is different, embrace their differences. It could be their purpose to be unrelatable to you first so that they can play a part in helping you evolve and showing you something new and showing you something different that can be good for you and good for, a multitude of everybody type shit. So yeah. Now we pick up at the date and it's a fancy restaurant, child. And everything is everything. It seems to be going off nice. They are authentically bonding with each other, talking about movies and such. They like the Dr. Doolittle's, the Dr. No, Dr. this and Dr. that type movies. She asked him how he gets into veterinarianisms and all of that. I just probably made up a word, but he's a veterinarian. So she's asking him how he get into that. He like, I always loved animals. And after I saw Dr. Doolittle, I was hooked. Hey now. So yeah, that's how they get into the doctor movies and all of that good shit. They's bonding over. They both are like kind of sophisticatedly silly. And in the midst, we see the girls stroll in like polish, set it off, but they are there to just be nosy. So the waiter is trying to wait on them and is asking like, hey, y'all want some hors d'oeuvres? Y'all want some appetizers? Y'all want some drinks? Can we start y'all off with something? They're like, nah. Max just want the biscuits, okay? And the motherfucking tea, the motherfucking information on the situation. She fussing at Khadijah like, okay, you acting all done up and things like you ain't trying to get into the information of it all. Then why you take the best seat? Why you take the best seat? Hush that up and let us know what is going on, okay? The fuck? So Khadijah's like, well, I don't see too much in Nathaniel. He just leaning over, looking for a role, I think. I don't know. Ain't too much going on. Ray Jean said, oh, nah, I can't stand all of this. Y'all got too little to say. So she pulls out her like handheld vanity mirror or whatever, and she is looking at them through the reflection. So that pans us back on over to them having a date. And Sinclair is talking about how she has the worst sense of direction in the world, Craig. She's talking about she can't get on the subway without getting lost. And he says, you too, when I take the train, the way I don't want to go is the way I usually end up going. Unfortunate. So they he and a ha and all about that. And Ray Jean is talking about, that laugh is all wrong. And she's not even showing any cleavage. It's the cleave. Show the cleave. Oh, girl, bye. They doing just fine without all of it. Stop the madness, you see? That's their projection. Projection and micromanagement. You must be stopped. Now, Maxine talking about, we put too much time into this date for it to not be going well. So they call over the waiter, and they want to send a note on over to him. And he's talking about, well, I guess I ain't using my pen for nothing else. He upset because he ain't really finna be getting no tip for the night because they ain't ordering nothing. They just taking up space. So he is giving him a hard time. So Khadijah's like, look, I have a goat cheese salad. You know, so they can at least spend some money so he don't be acting all funny with them and he go ahead and send a note. So the note goes over. And he gives it to Sinclair, and Sinclair reads it, and it's like, oh, excuse me. And she starts laughing all maniacally like a fool. Doing what Ray Jean taught her. And he said, is it a problem, Miss Laley? This is the doctor. He said, is it a problem? Is it a problem, my love? What is going on? Are you okay? She said, oh, I'm just letting you know that I'm amused, and I have these. See, And he looks on up and over. He said, ain't those your friends over there? She said, yes, and I'm so embarrassed. Let's just try and ignore them. He said, hey, that's fine by me. If you never leave, we can live like this forever. It's fine by me. But the waiter comes on back over. She says, I got a message. He got a message. And Sinclair says, buddy, your note passing has done enough damage for the night. Skedaddle. He says, I have a message for the doctor. She says, oh, okay, I'm sorry, proceed. And he excuses himself. And in this time, which the doctor excuses himself to go take that call, the lady scurried on over to get an update with Sinclair. But the update that they get is Sinclair standing her ground. Like, hey, pardon my French, but what the heck is y'all doing here? And they like, we just came to make sure that she was okay. She said, no, you came because you're nosy. But he says that too. She says, you know, back home I only had one overbearing mother, and it seemed like here I got three. And when my mom would follow me out to a date, she never came to the table. She had enough class to stay at the bar. I know that's right. That's the least you could do, honey, is stay at the bar. And she puts her hands up on her hip, and she flips her neck on them and says, honey, if you don't mind, may I finish my day on my own? Thank you. Okay? Max still eating up the rolls. They said, look, you know, I don't appreciate, no, Khadijah says, I don't appreciate you going off on me, but I love that you stood up for yourself. Hey, now. And that's the purity of it all, because I do believe that to some degree they were genuinely concerned about Sinclair, because it's easy to assume that she is just totally gullible and can't handle herself and all of the things. But so, her being able to stand up for herself lets people who truly care about her for real, it lets them know, okay, maybe she don't need us to be like hovering her, like talking about the way that we thought. She can stand up for herself if and when needed type shit. So, yeah. She proceeds and she says, good, now get out of here. And that's on period. And so, they caught off guard. And Khadijah says, don't push it out. You ain't too big yet, okay? You ain't too big. Basically like she a whooper. A miss. So the doctor comes on back in and he said, hey, I'm really sorry. That was my service. I must go down to the office. It was somebody about a dog in despair. Can I drop you off on the way? She says, oh, don't worry about me. There's a puppy out there with a warm, dry nose who needs your help. Now go. He says, thank you for being so understanding. They have a little kiss, okay? He says, we're going to have to do this again, all right? Just you and me. She says, yes, absolutely. They give good night, and goodbye. And honey, over to the side, we see that it is Overton, ever so Sly, giving the waiter 2 bills, literally $2. The waiter thought that he was getting some $20 bills, apparently. But nah, Overton handed him $2 on the back end. Oh, well. Okay, but say, he might just have to, end up paying for this dinner, so maybe he needs to save his money. Okay, maybe you get a little more on the back end. This thing go well, all right? So, he strolls on up like he just there. Sinclair says, oh my gosh, where you been? Where are you here? You come here often? He says, oh, I just came for the french fries. You mind if I sit down? She says, absolutely. So they sit on down. And he goes on in and he said, look, I know that I ain't no big time doctor, Nathaniel. I ain't rich. I ain't the most handsome man in the world. But, and she says, are you going somewhere? Are you going somewhere with this? Yeah. He said, I'm just going over the things that I know. And, okay, she just looks on, he says, he says, but there's one thing that I do know, even more, I'd really be honored to have dinner with you tonight. She says, oh, well, so would I. And he looks on over his shoulder and it's Kyle. He says, how am I doing? How am I doing, Kyle? He said, what do you mean? And I figured that there was a reason why we was able to see who was sitting behind him, covering their face up with the menu for a reason. Because it's Kyle on back there, being the great wingman, that he is. All right, so cover being blown, we see that their night still went off without a hitch, honey. Because we pick up with them coming back to the apartment, and they is laughing and chuckling, and clearly done had a good old time. And apparently they also went bowling, because Sinclair says, I never knew that you was such a good bowler. And he says, oh girl, I'm a man of many talents. She says, yes, really? Like what else? He says, I don't know. They all hitting. I cannot. And she says, so. And he says, so. It's a little delightfully awkward, but he leans in for a kiss and she gives him a pleasant kiss on the cheek, and he's satisfied with it. But he got the stamp of approval of her lipstick on his cheek. Overton look good too, honey. Overton look damn good. All right, and Kyle comes on downstairs and he's talking about, I guess I ain't gotta ask how the evening went, given the fact that you were still standing on this side of the door. He said, whoa, Holiday, buddy boy, you gonna have to take a good look at this cheek right here. You see, check it out. And Kyle said, oh, okay, lipstick just inches away from your lips. That's all right. That's all right, because that's pretty good for 1 year, huh? He said, are you kidding? I'm 6 months ahead of schedule. All right, watch out. Big dog, stepping lightly like a woodpecker with a headache. Boom, TikTok. Yes, I'll back up with Sinclair on over in the room with the girls. And honey, it is highly evident that she had a magnificent time with your guy. And she said they was up in there just ordering everything up out the menu just to see what it was. So like they could guess what it was before it came and then see what it is by the time it get there. So it's like, okay, seems like y'all had a great old time for all. And they said that the doctor has also been calling. Yes, so he left 3 messages. He definitely want to give her again. Yes, honey. She said she don't have to check her schedule. She has to check her calendar. She said, oh my gosh, I got a social calendar. Hey now. And Regine says, hey, I got to give it to you, Sinclair. I got to give it to you. You went from having no dates in 6 months to 2 days in 1 night, right? She keeping up with you, ain't it, girl? But she said first dates ain't easy. And she said, and Regine says first dates are when you can get the most out of them. But that's before they know they ain't getting none at the end of the night. She snapped. And Maxine says, yes, it all comes down to the last 60 seconds of the date where you contemplating. Do I? Don't I? And Regine says, will I? Won't I? And Sinclair says, should I? Shouldn't I? And Khadijah says, ah, hell, come on in. Oh, yes, it is. Ooh, so yes. That was a magnificent episode. And I love how they allowed the dates to play out because it showed perfectly, bruh. Ain't nothing wrong with Sinclair. Ain't nothing wrong with Overton. And the doctor ain't all uptight and this and that like a lot of people would have assumed, and even more particularly that the girls had assumed, because he was able to meet Sinclair right on her, down to earth, but also not of this planet ass energy. In the best freaking stinking way. They were bonding over like, the most, I don't know, like, some of the most peculiar things, but also some of the sweetest things, movies, loving animals and all this shit. And all Sinclair had to do was be herself. And that's what I say, be yourself. You attract who you supposed to be with sooner and better if you're being yourself. People don't like it, you're being yourself, fuck them up against the wall with handcuffs on and crazy glue on their lips. Alright, Bernie Mac said the best, fuck them, period. Be yourself. Because that's also, what I picked up and noticed about you know, the advice and everything, the girls, the projections, even that the girls was putting on Sinclair, it was like they was giving her all these tips and tricks on how to be somebody other than herself, how to be something that she's not, and giving her impression that in order to get a man's attention and favor and approval and this and that you have to morph into what you think he needs and desires you to be, and or just morphing yourself into somebody else that you are not, and all the while thinking that you're gonna attract somebody authentic. Because quiet as kept, loud as it is, that's how a lot of these girlies, the men's is too, but that's how a lot of these girlies in particular be getting, you know, caught up in the cycle of constantly attracting dishonest men who have a mask up for a good while, you know, performing, trick ponying galore, and then one day the mask drop and you like, who the fuck is this? And then also you see yourself, you done did all this performing and trick ponying and this and that and the third, and then you look and you are not able to keep up the mask, you're not able to keep up the performance because it is exhausting. Amongst you realizing how exhausting the other motherfucker is, now y'all are just up here exhausted and exhausting each other and beating each other up because you ain't got nothing else within each other, let alone yourselves, to exhaust any further. Tisk. So again, the moral of the story is be yourself. People don't like you being yourself. Fuck them. Fuck them up against the wall with handcuffs on and crazy glue on their lips. And what I also want to point out in the difference is Kyle and Overton were able to balance out with each other. I don't know what that is to say about it. Maybe Overton is a bit more outspoken than Sinclair is, straight up. I think that's one thing that I noticed, that is a bit of a difference between them. It takes a little minute for Sinclair to start speaking up for herself versus Overton seems like he's aloof all the time, but he's very much so there, and he will let you know, hey, you got to wake up damn early. I used to be a shepherd, so you know I wasn't a sheep. Don't get it twisted. So I think that's one thing that makes a difference amongst him being a man and the way that men are conditioned and the way that people are taught to handle men. So yeah, so him and Kyle were able to balance out very well, whereas Kyle was giving him tips, but it was nothing, it seems like it wasn't anything that was guiding Overton to conform into something that wasn't himself, just more so end up highlighting the best features about himself and helping him help himself capitalize off of them and lead with them in a bit of a more suave type of manner, a smooth type of manner, but still being himself, being true to himself. So that's interesting, something to think about in a way that men and women are conditioned in a society in general, whereas more often than not, women are often encouraged in order to get something that they want, whether it's a man or, you know, anything else. More often than not, women are encouraged to become something that they're not, and men more often are taught to highlight and lead with more specific qualities about themselves. So this could, you know, in certain cases, like pitfalls for men in that manner, it could lead to them shrinking themselves or making themselves one-dimensional to a degree. But I feel like in Overton's case, it brought out his dimensions. Real cute, real cute. And one of those main dimensions I feel like is his authentic sense of charm. He has a natural sense of charm. He's not doing the most to try to put on some Rico Suave routine. He is naturally charming and charismatic in his own way. So highlighting that about himself amongst him still being natural, it has a real nice effect. It has a real nice impact. And I ain't gonna lie, y'all, Ovi got me crushing. But this is a magnificent episode, y'all, and I believe, honey, it's about that time where I remind y'all, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man a fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. Y'all got fishing, baby. And with all that being said, y'all, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this couch right. And I am thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you feel synchronized, please do me a divine and like, share, and subscribe, so that you'll be one of the first to be back through these queenly qualities for the next time. And be sure to bless that comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in all ways, like love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.